I only got one thing to say. Whipple. What's up, everybody? So in this episode we're going to take a short break from the Z content, and I've got a new project to work on today. It's a 2017 GT Mustang from my uncle, and we're going to be installing a Whipple Supercharger. So here's a Supercharger. It's a Gen 5 Whipple 3-liter. I'm going to be installing a Stage 2 kit. And we're shooting to make right around 800 horsepower. So now let me show you the car. So here it is. This is my uncle's 2017 GT Mustang. Currently it has a Roush intake, Roush catback exhaust, and a custom tune. Nothing too special on the outside. Looks pretty stock. Just some wheel spacers, pull the wheels out a little bit, make it look better. But I'm going to start taking this thing apart and not do a total step-by-step, just a general showing how to install it. Alright, so before you get started, I would recommend going ahead and pulling your tune calibration off of the car and sending it to Whipple. That's one thing they recommend to do a couple days before you get started. So I went ahead and did that. So next I'm going to pull up the rear seat and disconnect the power for the fuel pump, start the car up, and bleed off all the fuel pressure. And then next I'm going to pull the front bumper off, this upper cover, and then the cover on the bottom of the car. So I'm going to get that done and get back to you. Alright, well, I got the front bumper off. I just put all my screws in a container right here. I know pretty much where everything goes. I've taken a handful of these front bumpers apart. But next, got to disconnect the battery, get the strut tower brace off, the engine cover, and the factory intake. So I'm going to get that done real quick and get back with you. Alright, well, I got the radiator draining here at the moment. Tank cock's here over on the side. And then I took the cap off the overflow tank. I'm going to disconnect the lines for the overflow tank, the evap line here that goes up under the brake booster, and then a handful of these other lines right here around the throttle body, and just keep working. Alright, well, I got these lines disconnected. I got the heater core lines disconnected on both sides. I got this coolant hose disconnected, and then these two vacuum lines. And then this is your evap line. And under the brake booster, you've got this line here, and the two little green tabs have to be pushed up, and then you can pop this out. So once you get that out, you'll disconnect your brake booster vacuum line. I just pulled the whole check valve out, and then I'll take the line off. So next it'll be disconnecting the fuel line here, and then undoing the bolts that hold this fixture up top and hold the fuel rails. Alright, before I pull the fuel rails off, I've got to get all these coolant lines off. So you got to get this off, this, get it disconnected from the thermostat housing, this hose off, and then this lower hose. And then I'm going to take the two 8 mils off of the thermostat housing. So get that done and get back with you. Alright, so I got these hoses off. And one tool I definitely recommend is this hose hook. This one's from Snap-on. There's your part number. And hopefully this helps you get it off. You stick it behind the, you hook it in behind the hose and just walk it around the sides of it, and it helps you get the hose unstuck. I know sometimes on cars with a lot of age, the hoses will stick a lot more. This car, it wasn't that bad. So the next step is disconnecting your fuel injectors, all 8 of the clips on either side, and then taking the bolts out of the intake manifold. There should be, I believe, 8 bolts after you unbolt the fuel rail. So I'm going to get this intake manifold pulled and the fuel rails, and then keep going from there. Alright, well, I got the intake manifold off. Definitely can't say that was easy, disconnecting everything from the back. So the blue connectors back there hook up to the solenoids on the top, and then you've got a positioning sensor plug there, and then another one there, and then you've got these clips here and here that clip into the back of the intake manifold. So I'm going to get all this cleaned up real quick with a vacuum, and then move on to the next steps. Alright, I got the liner off the bottom of the hood, and then I got these tabs pushed in. I'm not sure how far they need to be pushed in. And then I got the hose off the top here, the heater hose, and then got the belt off. So next, I believe we got to take the tensioner off, and then we're going to remove this brace here on the back, and then continue working. Alright, so next, put the new thermostat in there. It's a 160-degree thermostat, and then I looked through the packaging. I didn't see a new thermostat gasket, so we're just going to risk it for the biscuit. Run the old thermostat gasket in there, get all this put back together, get the hose on, and then move on to the next step. Alright, got the thermostat housing together, got the lower hose on. So next we're going to start with the heater core lines. So we'll start with the passenger side. So this package is going to get it opened up, and here's the little coupler that goes in the middle, and you're going to cut, so there's a restrictor right in here, so you're going to cut an inch or two back from there and remove this factory sleeving, and then put the new sleeving on that's inside of here, and they give you heat shrink to put on either end of it. And then these are supposed to be replacements for clamps. They're one-time use. You put them on, you use a heat gun, and they shrink and seal. So I'm going to get this side taken care of, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so I went ahead and cut the hose in half and put the barb fitting on here. Then you take and put your first piece of the heat shrink that goes around the loom on. Make sure this is pushed all the way up. Then you put your, it's called a power grip, on here. And then take your other piece, stick it on your hose, slide them together, and you want to go ahead and get it pretty close to where it needs to fit. And then you'll slide these over where the barb is. And then grab your heat gun. It's got that on. You take the loom that they supply, and when you push down on it, it opens up. So you slide that over the end. A little bit of fidgeting with it, and then you eventually get it figured out. Alright, and then when you get down to the end over here, you're going to push it under your heat shrink that you slipped on. And push it, the heat shrink up in a little ways. Finish putting it on. Slide it down a little further. And again, using the heat gun on that end, and then you'll slide your other piece on. A little difficult. But get your piece on, and of course, put it under the loom. And if you want to put it over this fitting, I think it looks better if you put it over the fitting. Heat up the heat gun, and then go on to the other side. Alright, got all this together, and they recommend moving this clamp right here as close as you can to the cylinder head, just so you have extra clearance for the supercharger. If not, it'll touch. So, got this on. Next, I've got to take the upper radiator hose off and cut about 1 inch out of it. And then this overflow hose, they want you to cut 1 inch out of that also. So I'm going to cut those real quick and keep moving. Alright, so next we got these two harnesses. Got this one here. This is for your throttle body extension. So this is your throttle body plug. You plug it in there, and you'll set it over to the side and wait to hook up the throttle body. And then our second one here, this is your 3-wire to 2-wire harness. So this connects over to this plug here. This is was originally for your intake runner positioning sensor, I believe it was. And you'll run this over to the driver's side, and it'll get hooked up to the supercharger when all that's plugged in to intake air temp sensor. Alright, next we're going to be installing the tensioner bracket. So we're going to be taking this bolt out, this one over here. So I'm going to get these taken out, and then get the hardware out to bolt this on and get it in place, and then show you what it looks like. Alright, we got the assembly put on, everything torqued down. Now I'm going to get the other tensioner assembly put together. You've got your offset T-nut with the hole sitting at the top. You've got your spacer, your other spacer, and then your bolt. And then it'll go down here, and there's a pin that lines up with the one on the back of here. You line that up, and you torque it down. And you kind of let this rest free, so you can move it around for whenever you put the belt back together. I'm going to get this on and show you what it looks like. Alright, so it's the next day. Went ahead last night, got all the pulleys on, the tensioner, the idler pulleys. So they got all that set up, and then going to move on to starting to work on the fuel system. So I'm going to get all that stuff out and start getting it together. Alright, so we pretty much got the coolant stuff wrapped up, other than this one hose here. It goes on this barb over to the overflow tank. But next, going to get into wiring up the intercooler pump. So, got power and ground, and then this is goes into the fuse box, and this is actually going to be the signal for the relay. So, going to pull this ground off, and then under here, going to take off the power, and then I'll have to look up which fuse it is we're supposed to use for the trigger for the relay. But I'm going to get all this stuff set up and show you how it's supposed to look. Alright, so here's the ground. And then in here, this is where your 5-amp fuse goes. And make sure you put the original fuse back into the fuse holder. Your power wire. And then I've got everything zip tied over here. Not really too happy about this. I'll probably make a bracket to hold the relay and the fuse. And then I've got it ran across the radiator support. And then I've got my harness just sitting here hanging, waiting to put the pump in. Alright, so over here I got my fuel rails set up. So this is the driver's side, this one's the passenger. And then I got my injectors laid out. And then here's your lube to put on the O-rings on the injectors. And then your spacers to put under the injectors in the ports. So I'm going to just drop each one in one of the ports. And then get the injectors fitted on. And then put the locking clips on. And then bolt it to the supercharger. And then next I will get the fuel lines connected. I'll get those out first and show you how they all hook up. But make sure you lube everything really good. Most of the time they give you a decent amount of that super lube. If not, you can use engine oil. That'll be fine. Just make sure it's clean. Alright, so this is what the rail looks like installed with the injectors. Little locking tabs in the back. So next I'm going to get the fuel lines hooked up. So you've got the line that runs all the way around to the other one of these 180-degree fittings. And then there's the ones in the back. I'm going to get those installed. I'll show you what it looks like. Here's the other side. So alright, I'm going to get that on real quick and show you what it looks like. Alright, so here's the lines on. They just push in. And then the one for the driver's side of the car has the 90 on it. And the passenger has the 45. And then it just connects up to the front. So next we're going to, I believe, move to the bypass on the front. So we're going to hook the vacuum line up for that. And then get the lid pulled off. Alright, I got the bypass on the supercharger. I got the zip ties on it. And I had to shorten mine just a little bit so it wouldn't kink up right here. So next, I got the lid off. I'm going to put the seals on. And then get the oil in the back of it and the seal on the bypass for the lid. Alright, we got the seals on. Got the fluid in the supercharger. And then I went ahead and put the IAT sensor on. And then I put the O-ring that goes on the bypass. Now I had some of the leftover lube, and it's definitely helped, is to lube the O-ring for the bypass. And put it in there. Definitely goes in a lot easier, and it'll make it easier putting the lid on. So next I'm going to get the seals that go on the bottom of the supercharger that hook up to the cylinder heads, put those in, And then I believe it's time to place the supercharger on it. Alright, well, I got the supercharger in place. I got the bolts in, got them torqued down. Ended up leaving this hose off until after I had everything hooked up. And I also left the fuel line that loops around to the other side off until I got everything bolted down, and then I put it back on. So next, I believe we're going to be putting the lid on. So we'll get to that. Alright, so I've gotten quite a bit done. Went ahead, got most of the plumbing done for the heat exchanger. Everything's hooked up to the intercooler. Then on this side, got things run across. I found it easier to leave the radiator hose off until I got to this point, and then I'm going to zip tie all the hoses together. Got the reservoir and the pump on, pump's plugged in. And then right here, I had to cut this panel to get the hose to clear. So next I'm going to get the intake on, the throttle body, and finish plumbing everything up. Alright, so I pretty much got everything complete. Got the throttle body on, the intake, got the overflow tank hooked up. So everything should be good to go. Going to start adding fluids to it, and then get the tune in, and then put the rest of the car together. Alright, so this is the finished product. I've just got to put the bumper on, and the cover for the top of the radiator support, and the under tray. The directions for installing the calibration was pretty easy. That stuff's pretty spot on with how they give you the information. Once you get that in, you definitely want to check the car for leaks. We'll end up having a small leak at one of these 180 fittings. I believe both sides, so I'm going to contact Whipple about it. It's not that big of a deal, but you definitely don't want to have any fuel leaks. I've experienced with even some of the really expensive fittings that sometimes they just leak. It's not that big of a deal. So I'll get those new fittings in pretty quickly, get this thing wrapped up, and get it out on the road and enjoy it. Everybody, it's been a couple weeks. I've let my uncle enjoy the car. We're here at Phantasm Motorsports, getting ready to dyno the car, see what kind of power it makes. So let's see what it does. Alright, as you can see, the Z is back in the garage. My uncle's got his car back, and he is thrilled. He loves this thing. The night I gave him the car back, he called me when he got home, and we talked for an hour just about how much he liked this thing. And he only lives like 15 minutes away from me. He is the kind of person that if he doesn't like the car, he's not going to keep it long. I mean, all my life he's been in and out of different cars, different trucks, and if he gets tired of it, he gets rid of it. And he loves this thing. He plans on keeping it a long time, so that's good. The car did pretty good on the dyno. Didn't make exactly what we wanted. You know, we were shooting for around 800 horsepower, and we were 100 horsepower shy, making 693, which isn't bad. I mean, the car is still on a stock tire, stock clutch, so those are going to be some definite improvements on the car, because he does want to turn this thing up. Once he gets used to it, we're going to do a smaller pulley. We'll definitely have to get a new clutch because it's not going to last long at all. Probably put some pretty sticky tires on it. And yeah, let me know if you like this kind of stuff. I can always do more videos on it, because I'll eventually continue working on this car. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more content, and have a good night.